Join the conversation. Follow Jason on Twitter. And don't forget to visit the live show fan page on Facebook.
Alrighty, so Obamacare, right? You've got these politicians who are going back home to their home districts, and they're inviting people to come out to these town hall meetings, and where they hear from the people and they answer questions. They make you feel like they care what you have to say, and then they go back to Washington and do pretty much whatever they want to do. Well, they're getting a lot of heat on this Obamacare deal. And it's always, I pulled this one because it's emotional and it tugs on our heartstrings. But I want to be not heartless, but I just want to be really clear about what role and responsibility we have as a collective to our neighbor. So this is, I think it's Bill Rackus, Republican Gus Bill Rackus. And he had more than 200 people show up and pack a Palm Harbor Community Center on Saturday morning, and so tightly that latecomers had to park down the street. And one of the questions was from a guy named Ethan Thornton, who is 21 years old, who fought back tears describing the congenital heart condition that could cut his life short. The Affordable Care Act had allowed him to have coverage under his parents' plan into his 20s, he said. "I'm an independent who voted for you," he told Bill Rackus. He says, "Please don't take my life away. Please don't let me die." Now, I have a question, Darren. Maybe you can answer this because I don't know what the rules are. But if you're on your parents' plan and you get onto a new plan prior to them you being forced off of their plan, is that pre-existing condition? Are you going to be screwed when you jump plans?
Well, are you talking about under the current law or under past
Under
law?
past law.
Well,
I know in Obamacare it doesn't matter, but
typically, I think under the past law, it was as long as you stayed insured, then you would be grandfathered in. So
as long as it
if you
didn't
were
lapse.
on your parents' deal and then you got another insurance plan, as long as it didn't lapse, I think you would be okay. Now, if you let it lapse and then you try to come back, then I think you'd have to go through underwriting again. And
that's what I thought too, because he does have insurance, so it's not a pre-existing condition, and all he needs to do is get a policy on his own, and as long as it didn't lapse, it wouldn't be considered a pre-existing condition.
It may have been different in each state, I know in Kansas it was like as long as it didn't lapse, then you would be okay.
It really doesn't matter for the purpose of my conversation, but I just would like to know, is there really something here? Like, would he have been denied medical care, medical insurance had he gotten off his parents' plan and tried to get his own plan? If he'd gone out, would they have said, "No, you got this pre-existing condition, we don't want to insure you"? But that's really irrelevant to the conversation. The real question is, what role do you have? What responsibility do you have to provide for your neighbor's insurance? And we talk about the 5 principles here: limited government, individualism, peace, tolerance, and free markets. And there are 5 principles there. I personally believe that charity is also a principle that we should follow. However, I don't have it as one of the 5 principles, mainly because I don't want to confuse positive and negative rights. So with charity, what I'm saying is I think that I have a responsibility as someone who has more than I need to live to help those less fortunate than me. I also happen to believe that that's a responsibility that you have. And so I think that it's my job to try and convince you that it's a good idea for you to give a portion of your money in charity. Now, what you give, how much you give, who you give to is really your business. It's your money. But I just think morally, we do have a responsibility to help those who are less fortunate than us. But there's a difference between charity and compulsion. You see, if the government comes and just takes my money in order to give it to Mr. Evan, I have no obligation to give my money to Evan, none whatsoever. My money is mine. I don't owe it to Evan, and I apologize. I feel bad that he's got congenital heart disease and that his life may be cut short. But that doesn't mean that because he has a hard time getting insurance, that it's somehow my responsibility, nor is it the representative's responsibility. He goes on and says, please don't take my life away. The representative doesn't have anything to do with whether or not your life goes away or not. It's not the representative's money either. He says, please don't let me die. That's not up to the representative. He's laying at the feet of this representative that says, and what he's essentially saying is, please go steal for me so that I can afford treatment, so that I can live a little bit longer. And try as I may, I cannot make a moral justification for the theft of someone else in order to keep Mr. Thornton alive. Now, I believe that if Mr. Thornton was someone who was close to me, that I might raise some money for him, that I might be willing to donate to him if he came to me and said, I need a little bit of money. I can tell you those things are highly likely to happen. And you know what? They're likely to happen for almost every American. One of these GoFundMe has changed the way people raise money. My wife and I were looking online, and there are so many now. They set up a GoFundMe for everything. You have a new baby, GoFundMe account. But if you need money, I think America gives away $350 billion a year in charity. Now, that's after they're taxed by the government. $350 billion. Most charitable people on earth are Americans. We give more of our personal wealth away in charity than any other nation. But we don't owe. There's a difference. And so when it responds to the Affordable Care Act, I believe that it is immoral. A property right violation. Remember, we talked about morality on the show not long ago. It is immoral because it violates someone's property rights to come to them and say, I think it's important that you give to this. I think it's important that Mr. Thornton live a little bit longer, and therefore you are obligated to give. Or in this case, you have got a group of people showing up demanding that their representative support and advocate the theft of their neighbor's wealth in order to provide for Mr. Thornton's insurance. Just because Mr. Thornton loses his insurance doesn't mean he's going to die. He can go out. He can get money from other people. There are charities. I'm going to get all kinds of like nasty emails about this, but how bad does he want to live? I'm sick and tired of people coming out and just demanding that somebody else provide for your life. Whether it's your school, or whether it's your home, or whether it's your car, or whether it's your insurance, whether it's your daycare for your kid. Nobody owes you anything. And it doesn't matter whether you're just too lazy to pay for it or whether you're on your deathbed. Nobody owes you. You can seek the charity of others, but they're not owed. And we live in the most generous nation on earth. And I think if the government would get out of our pockets and would return to us the 20 to 40% a year that it confiscates from the people and would give it back to them, there would be an outflowing of support. Because people would have 30 to 40% more money to spend. And we have already proven through our current generosity that we are a generous people. But unfortunately, we're stuck in a world where everyone assumes that they're owed and the government ought to just go out and steal